Hello. Today I will be commenting on a very strange beast indeed. The T10 Royal Navy cruiser, the Minotaur. Now, this ship is quite strange in multiple ways. As some of you are aware, these Royal Navy cruisers have gone through multiple iterations. They have been things removed, added, smoke removed, added, before they finally decided on that the way they want to go is remove the HE. Now, of course, taking the HE away from a cruiser is always going to be a weakness. Like, there's no way you can possibly say that having less options in terms of armament is an advantage. Is of course a huge downside. But they have made a pretty good job of making sure that the downside isn't actually that big. The Minotaur is, as you can see, extremely stealthy. If you look at the transparent ring on the minimap, the whole transparent area, that's my concealment. It's 8.9 kilometers. That's with the concealment module, the stealth, and the stealth perk. So you are, of course, the stealthiest T9 cruiser by far. There's absolutely no competition. Not even a Zao can sneak up on you. You will be able to outspot him. You will even outspot Atagos, which is pretty impressive considering they are before this known to be the very stealthy beasts. First of all, another thing you might notice is my turret traverse. You see how it's absolutely no issues keeping up with anywhere I point my crosshair. That's because the turret traverse on this T10 ship is insane. In fact, I'm using the reload module because when you're AP based, when your ship is AP based, what you want to do is you want to pump out the maximum amount of damage. Well, this is my opinion, of course, but in my opinion, you want to be able to pump out the maximum amount of damage on a broadside you can before the ship angles against you. Because as with any sort of AP shells, if you angle against it, it loses effectiveness very quickly, whereas if you give broadside, it has maximum effectiveness. So rather than go for the increased range, I chose to go for the faster reload so that I would be able to punish those broadsides to the maximal amount before they angle away from me. That was my philosophy when approaching the build on this ship, and personally I think it works quite well. Now, consumable wise, you can of course see that I have smoke. It's much like the Belfast smoke, it only lasts 7 seconds, meaning 2 puffs, meaning I have to slow down plenty in advance, already slowing down now, and once my speed drops past or around half, that's when I actually pop my smoke, so I won't glide out of it. And here you can see of course the reload mode in action. 2.8 second reload on these double turrets. So if I were to give you a too long didn't watch summary of this ship, I would say a T10 Flint that only shoots AP. That's pretty much this ship in essence, including the insane anti-air, because yes, this ship also has absolutely tremendous anti-air, but I will be covering that after this commentary since I'm not actually facing any carrier in this one, but I thought it was important enough to bring it up later. Now, DPM wise, you can of course see that on a broadsiding battleship, the Yamato, probably known as the tankiest battleship in the game pretty much, and you can see the actual damage I deal to him is absolutely immense. I barely been in the smoke for what, not many seconds, and I've already got 38k damage, and it's still adding up as these shells start landing. You might have noticed I randomly shoot down planes. That's spotter planes. Pretty much as soon as they become visible, you are able to shoot them down. That's of course a pretty good thing for this whole stealthy approach and sneaky approach, but once again, as I said, I'll return to the AA later. Now you can see of course the massive DPM I did earlier. The damage is quickly falling off as he's angling. He's not fully angled yet, but the more a ship angles away, the less effective you of course are. In fact, it's kind of amusing when you shoot ships in this thing. You go from when he's angled, you feel underpowered, to when he gives broadside, you feel absolutely overpowered because you do so much pure damage. It feels ridiculous. You're like, oh my god, this is absolutely stupid. I shouldn't do this much damage. And then he angles away, and suddenly all your damage just fades away, and it's like, wait, what just happened? So this ship is of course highly situational in that way. In fact, one of the frustrations with this ship might be that you don't have as much of an impact on your damage as the enemy has. In fact, well, you can of course affect, just like with the Hindenburg, you can affect the positioning and choosing correct positions and ambushing enemy and forcing them to give you a broadside by challenging them in positions where they have to turn away and ultimately give you a broadside. You can have this type of influence on the enemy, but if you face good people who focus on angling against you, it's going to be very rough to deal any sort of damage. And I'm going to show you a very strong example here. The Japanese DDs are of course known to be extremely squishy. So when I tell, well, anyone knows DDs are squishy, and Japanese DDs in particular are very, very squishy indeed. Another spotter plane. As soon as I spotted, instant shot now. So when I tell you that these are squishy and you see a Kagero, you of course think I'm gonna do big damage to him, but he's angled. And here we see one of the bigger weaknesses of having purely AP based ammunition. No, I'm not overpenning him. He's bouncing my shells. 7 bounces, 8 bounces, 9 bounces, 11 bounces, 12. Is it gonna be 12 bounces? I hit that Kagero 13 times. That was on the Benson, not the Kagero. I hit the Benson, the Kagero 13 times, and I did 0 damage because he bounced every single shell. So that's very much what I mean. When you first look at this commentary, you saw the damage I did to those battleships who gave me broadside, and you're like, what the fuck, this ship is absolutely overpowered. And then you go into that moment where I'm shooting a goddamn DD, a Japanese DD, and he bounces 13 of my shells, and you go, what the hell, that's so underpowered. And then we go to this rune giving me broadside, and you watch his entire HP pool melt away in seconds because he gave me broadside. And once again it's like, wait a minute, wasn't this ship just overpowered? Now it looks underpowered, now it looks overpowered again. And that's kind of the thing. This ship is so situational based on what type of angle the enemy gives. It's probably because you don't have the ammo choice. You cannot change ammunition. So your damage, if someone made a graph of the damage when you're shooting a ship, it would basically make this huge U shape where it's like the damage is 0, then it skyrockets, well, upside down U basically, an omega symbol in fact. The damage goes from 0 to insane to 0 again as the ship completes the turn. And it's weird. It's weird to play with, but it is strong. And I have absolutely no doubt that this ship is a very potent ship. Like, it has a huge amount of firepower and it has smoke, so it's hard to fail when you have those tools. It's extremely hard to completely fail. But I feel like ship battles where you face up against Des Moines or Moskva or things like, or in general radar cruisers, that's going to be very, very rough, because this ship's main survivability method is stealth, it's concealment, it's staying hidden, not being spotted. And of course both Moskva and Des Moines have radar, and you don't want to be fighting those in fair fights. I've fought the Des Moines and I angled perfectly against him, and he shot the AP, he citadeled me right through the nose. He didn't give a shit, he just flat out citadeled me. I'll show you the armor model of this ship later, but basically any sort of waterline hit on this ship is going to be a citadel, and pretty much any sort of battleship hit on this is going to be a citadel, pretty much regardless of angle, because your citadel is so huge. So you want to be undetected the entire time. So that's why anything that can spot you, hydroacoustic, radar, these things hard counter you. They are really, really brutal. You have a fantastic heal. In fact, you have the best heal in the game. It heals you 866 health per second. So and it lasts for 20 seconds. So theoretically, that's what, 17k HP. You can heal up in 20 seconds. So that light damage, of course. You can heal up an absurd amount of health in a few seconds, but that is if you actually survive long enough to heal those. Because when you get spotted, and when people learn to actually focus fire you like insane, like they do to a Pensacola now. You know, if you spot a Pensacola or a Nuremberg or something, you will instantly fire at him because you know how squishy it is. The same thing multiplied by 10 is going to happen when the Minotaur becomes known, because people will learn that 1, it's a huge damage threat, 2, it's incredibly squishy. So you're gonna have to basically play cat and mouse and try to stay undetected the entire time. And there are things that are very brutal against it. Cruisers that have hydro, because you have quite strong torps. You have 10 kilometers torps on both sides. You have 8 of them, 2x4, and they deal like 16-17k damage each. So very, very potent torpedoes, but which of course dissuade battleships from pushing into the smoke right towards you. But cruisers, especially with hydro, oh boy, or with radar, those are very scary. In fact, I've been rushed down by a rune in my smoke. I thought I was safe, but he had no fear. He angled against me and he activated hydro and he just rushed me down in my smoke. And as soon as he got spotting on me, and instead of just me shooting him, we actually started trading shots. It didn't matter about my heal and my insane DPM, because pretty much every shell he landed at me either did huge damage or was just a straight up citadel. So you don't want to take fair fights in this thing. You want to take skewed fights where you have the advantage either in health or angling or positioning or their turrets being aimed the other way or any sort of thing. You don't want to be fighting fair in this thing. It's very much like a DD in that way, that you only take fights that are straight up in your advantage. And well, once again, here we get the example. Yamato shows me broadside. He's what, 29k HP? Well, he was 29k HP. And of course, aiming a bit too high. Let's aim a bit lower. That's more like I of course want to land on the deck or the superstructure. There we go. That's starting to look better. And once again, the damage is very, very good. Once you find that sweet spot where your shells start penning, the damage is absolutely insanely high. But well, I will show you very, very soon what happens when you overestimate your capabilities. Of course, one thing I should have mentioned here earlier, is also the maneuverability on the ship. Now, it's not that fast, but it handles like a dream. It turns like a god, it accelerates and stops like a god, it barely loses any speed. In fact, you can accelerate while turning very, very quickly. You can see how quickly this is just a very agile, very quick ship. So it has a lot of advantages, but it has some distinct disadvantages. Mostly, of course, being stealth. Disadvantage mostly being 1 armor, 2 AP only. Those are pretty much the 2 weaknesses. AA is strong, concealment is strong, torpedoes is strong, consumables are extremely strong. The DPM, of course, once you get broadside, is extremely strong. You might notice I'm not overpenning this DD. In fact, you get normal penetrations against DDs, so you melt DDs extremely quickly. I have like rushed caps with hydroactive and I've just instantly melted them. It's much like an Atlanta or Flint in that way, except instead of using HE, you're using AP and you just melt them instantly. It's really brutal. Now you might notice my heal, how quickly I'm healing up. If you look at my health at the bottom left, 31k, 33k, like it heals super quickly. But here I make the mistake, because I'm not that used to the ship yet, that I give too much broadside, because the ship turned faster than I remembered. So, well, faster than any other T10 cruiser, so I overturn and I give broadside, and as soon as you give broadside, slap, you are deleted. And that is, of course, the massive weakness of the ship. You do not want to get spotted, and you do not want to give broadside to anything at all. Now, as you can see, the game ended very soon after. Unfortunately, we lost, but I did end up doing 168k damage in 12 minutes and 29 seconds. So, well, here's something you never want to see. Kagero, 22 hits, 7.3k damage. That's of course terrible. But then on the other hand, the amount of shells I hit, 463, which is nowhere near the maximum. You can probably break 1,000 hits in this ship easily. And here's the damage I took. Only 7 hits from the Yamato was enough to delete me. But on the other hand, my damage is still pretty insane for such a short game. So as I said, this is a bit of a strange beast, isn't it? Now, I told you I would return with an example of the anti-air on this ship, and I've spoke of it quite often. Now the thing is, this ship by default has 6 kilometer anti-air and 5 kilometer the second tier of anti-air. But of course, since you don't have any HE, you just spec AFT, since you don't need Demolition Expert. And because you're a cruiser, you can spec for the anti-air range. So what this means is you have a anti-air range of 8.6 kilometers. 8.6 AA range. You know you don't have defensive AA, but as I said, from T8 onwards, your anti-air is absolutely god tier. So I took this real life example. I'm rushing into a cap using my stealth. The enemy has an SX, and the SX decides to focus me. So I focus fire his planes, and I smoke up. Smoking up, of course, makes the bombers very hard to hit me. And here you can see just the anti-air. These are T9 SX planes, and you can see just how quickly they melt. Like, now when I smoked up as well, he doesn't really know where to drop. He thinks he can run away, but you can't run away from this anti-air. It's just insane. The anti-air is insanely strong, and this is without being spec'd for it any more than the AFT and the range module. So actually I don't have the AFT damage buffed up. The only thing I have is the range on it increased. So I'm definitively going to be making a anti-air test on this ship where I just go full out anti-air just to see how potent you can get this anti-air, because I'm pretty sure you can get some absolutely ridiculous numbers on this thing. So the anti-air on T8 onwards is certainly no joke, and even though you don't have defensive AA, I highly doubt any CVs will be particularly eager to focus you down once they learn just how potent it is. And another point I promised to return to is, of course, the Citadel. You can see here, first of all, the Citadel armor is 101 on the sides. So that's obviously paper, for anyone who isn't aware. That's very papery armor. Second of all, you can see the sheer size of it. It goes all the way from past the back turret all the way to past the front turret. Any waterline hit basically on the middle of the ship is going to be a Citadel. Anywhere waterline is going to be a Citadel. And to add insult to injury, there's this huge elevation in the middle of the ship where the smokestacks is, where you don't even have to be hitting the waterline, just hitting pretty much anywhere on the broadside is a Citadel. You can see how there's more Citadel on the broadside than there is actual deck space, or well, hull space. Finally, of course, the build I use on the Minotaur right now. Damage control and repair party and smoke, I would use this premium on a T10 ship because they're kind of must-haves. Like maybe the repair part you can skip it, but you can see how insane it is. Restores 866 HP per second. It's pretty insane. But then again, the games where I've died, it's rarely because I've run out of heals. It's more the fact that you get caught in the open and I've still had heals left. So the deaths in this ship are less about running out of heals and more about just positional errors, or well, your team decides to pull back while you're caught in a smoke. Well, not much you can do. The second the smoke runs out, you're fucked. So questionable, very questionable, but I would recommend premiums, but then again, I don't have money issues, so I guess I'll leave it ultimately down to you guys. Upgrade-wise, turret upgrade as the first one, of course, since you've got fairly squishy turrets on this ship, so you want to be going for the basic main armaments mod. Finally, AA range, as I said, because, well, on a cruiser, especially in a spammy cruiser, the dispersion isn't as important. The reload mod, as I said, the main battery traverse doesn't really affect you. Of course, AA guns, if you want to be really disgusting, and I'm definitely going to make a test using that disgusting thing. Propulsion mod, steering gears mod, concealment, of course, you want that top tier stealth. I think on rudder shift this ship could be hilarious, but I don't really think it's worth it ultimately. Captain perks wise, basics of survivability. Expert marksman, well, once again, as I said, it's not that important on the T10. On the other one, sure, but on the T10 you might really go opt for something else, because as you can see, 180-degree turn rate is 5.3 seconds with it. It's not really needed, so I maybe last stand because of the Citadel hits breaking engine, or maybe torpedo reload might be actually more optimal. Superintendent, advanced firing training, because once again you don't have HE, so you don't need DE, and concealment expert for the stealth. What I use the last 3 points? Probably vigilance, maybe? I'm not 100% certain on that one yet. Anyway, that was my initial Minotaur commentary. Hope you guys enjoyed it.